Hello YouTube, Travis here again, here to expand on the whole Metroid Prime, who is Sylux theory. I was actually watching a couple videos on YouTube. I'm actually surprised there's not a lot of them out there. I guess people, like Sylux is an interesting character, but maybe some people don't really find, I'm sure they do, but I'm surprised there's not a lot of videos that detail it. But anyways, maybe that's what I should cover, because I'm always on the internet. You know, why not? I make videos talking about this stuff, so why not? Anyways, so if you're not familiar with Sylux, obviously Sylux is a mysterious character that no one has any clue what it is. There was actually somebody on YouTube that actually made a Sylux theory about a couple years ago. Well, actually, I'd say 5 years ago almost. It was back in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. They said that it was like right around the year when Metroid Other M came out. Sorry. She's, one of the people stated that it was Madeline Berman or something like that. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not really sure if I believe that Sylux is human. I also don't believe that Sylux would be a female. I mean, anything's possible, sure, but if Sylux is a female, that'd actually be very shocking if you think about it, because Sylux is not, when you think about Sylux in general, you think of like a really skilled hunter. Unless of course like Madeline of some sort was actually some sort of skilled hunter that we don't really know about, and she was kind of hiding it from people, then that would be a huge plot twist without a doubt. Spoiler alert, apple cider is good. Anyways, I know it's just random, but anyways. So, if you were to think about Sylux, though, if you actually look up the instruction manual for Metroid Prime Hunters, it mentions that there's new hunters. Now, obviously, Spar, Weevil, Noxus, Caden, Sylux, Trace, all 6 of those guys, plus Samus, aside from Samus, we knew that Sylux wasn't seen any other time in the game. So we can refer to the instruction manual for pretty much proving that Sylux is not human. It's not a character Samus has seen. The Federation has only seen it so long. And who Sylux is, we don't know. All we know is Sylux probably wants power, fame. Again, even Metroid Prime Hunters was a good example. What was that whole game story? It was calling, it was a mystical force that was calling, like, a weapons program. But really, it was all a trap instead, to get more power. But what ended up happening was Sylux wanted that power for himself. But he fought everybody else too, but Samus also was able to fight him off. So who was Sylux? Well, the way I look at it, this is another interesting theory that I have. The Galactic Federation, maybe Sylux knew that it wasn't really going to win, but maybe Sylux decided to do what all the other hunters weren't doing. Again, if you think about all the other hunters, they never really attacked the Federation that we know of. For all we know, maybe it was just Sylux. So if you think about that for a second, maybe Sylux realized that the Federation actually had something that it wanted, so it figured it could take it for the long run. Because again, think of it like this. If you're a bounty hunter, you're going to try and take what you can to survive. In Sylux's case, that's exactly what Sylux did. He figured, oh hey, why not just take everything I can get my hands on, because, it's already in the area. So once it found out about Samus, maybe that's when Sylux got really fed up of the Federation for getting in his way. But at the same time, though, maybe Sylux realized it would be a really good idea to steal from them instead. So if it's true what I'm thinking, and I know some people would probably say it's just a theory, a game theory. But anyways, we have to refer to Sylux for being what it is. We don't know who Sylux's origins completely are, but we have to really kind of understand its actions, though. We have to really look at where Sylux is, why it does what it does, and how it goes down every time we run into it. So, for example, if you were to look at the Metroid timeline, for example, you would realize that the game mentions that Sylux is capable of... Well, we really never knew Sylux existed until Metroid Prime Hunters. Now, Metroid Prime Hunters takes place in the same Prime series as Metroid. So there was Metroid Prime I think Metroid Prime Hunters, I don't know this off the top of my head, I should really look this up, comes before Metroid Prime 2, and then before 3. I'm not really sure. Again, I don't know. I always wanted to say that, because I know for a fact that as far as it being released, it was March 26, 2006. That's when the game was released. Or was it March 20th, 2006? Well, anyways, when Metroid Prime Hunters was released for the DS, that's when Sylux pretty much attacked the Federation, started coming into view. And he kind of hung around for a little bit. He's not going anywhere. Maybe Sylux hates the human race, if that makes sense. Maybe there's more to the story than just Sylux being a mysterious bounty hunter of some kind. Maybe there's more to it, like for example, Sylux could be this character that has this really strange ability to like it's good at stealth tracking and what else, but at the same time though we're really oblivious to like all these other alien races that are said to exist. Like for example, Federation had Sylux might have had a better ship and it upgraded it as much as it could, much like Samus upgraded her ship over and over again somehow, because the Federation was able to do that. But while we're on the subject, though, let's think of it like this. If Sylux isn't human, then what kind of an alien race can Sylux be? Could it be like a human-like race, but it would be completely different? It's weird if you think about it. Look at Metroid Prime, for example. Metroid Prime 1, or Metroid Prime 2, Look at Dark Samus. Even though Dark Samus really isn't, this is another thing. People still say that Dark Samus is a female, but really, if you think about Dark Samus, it really was an it. It wasn't really it was just Dark Samus because it was a clone of Samus, but in a way that's what the game designers were intending. But maybe Sylux is an it because it's never really referred to its gender. It doesn't even specifically state what its species is. It doesn't specifically state who it is. It's just that mysterious. You can tell that what Nintendo was trying to go for with the idea of that was Sylux was that mysterious character that are you afraid of the unknown. For example, they say that for example, if you were to watch horror movies about aliens, when they first came out. I mean, I know it's a cliche nowadays, and, even video games probably would scare you worse than, a movie, but, take, for example, Alien versus Predator. The reason it was supposed to be scary was because, you were dealing with, aliens that were from another planet, no one knew how to make sense of them, and but in the movie's case, they were supposed to be, the fight for survival, a bounty hunter, Predator that was able, or just the movie The Predator, not just the Alien versus Predator series, or even the Alien series, for example, if you want to go by James Cameron standards, but my point is that was the idea he was trying to get at, though, was here is this alien race, or predator, that's just, really skilled at being a hunter, and, people are okay, what the heck is this thing, and where do we go to defeat it at? It's just like that. No one really knew how to really approach that. Metroid Prime Hunters is the same way. When Sylux came into the picture, I mean, even though the Metroid games aren't really scary, in the sense that you're going to have nightmares, unless, of course, you really think about some of these things. It's really the only... Some people wouldn't really have nightmares, and I wouldn't really either, but they're really interesting games, though, to think about. Okay, this is completely off the topic, but it's if it wasn't for, Other M, for example, Metroid Fusion, there were some things that I would have been, you play the game and, you're how the hell did that get there? For example, if it wasn't for Other M explaining that the space pirates, the Federation actually stole some of the the DNA from the space pirates, it'd be like, well then, okay, how the hell did Ridley's DNA actually get on the space station? You know, that didn't make any sense, did it? And there was no indication of that either. Can you imagine Samus just running into that and that thing coming to life and looking at her? It's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? That was scary. You see, people say the SAX was scary and the Metroid Fusion. But personally, I think all the whole game itself, like what it was really representing, like the government conspiracies behind the Federation, like it was just there the whole time, like from start to finish. It wasn't just near the end of the game that you found this out. This was like the whole game, this whole time was probably one of the biggest plot twists in any game I've seen. Like, you know, so it's like, you know, it plays a role because who is Sylux though? I mean, sure, like, you know, you could even say, like, with Federation forces coming up, for example, you know, that we're going to see the role of, like, the space pirates versus the Federation, what the Federation is supposed to do. And, you know, maybe the Federation isn't completely evil, but at the same time, though, you know, again, Metroid Fusion, what happened there? Or we could take Disgaea 1, for example. And keep in mind, Disgaea 1 coming for the for the PC, they're adding new stuff to it. I'm bringing this up because if you're a Disgaea fan, you know, like Laharl, Etna, and Flane, you'll love the series. There was one thing that Seraphim, I'm trying to think of what his name was it? I'm trying to think what his name was. One of the Seraphims in Disgaea 1 stated that, you know, he was stating to Flane she didn't think demons were evil, because that's how it is. It's pretty much like, you know, every Disgaea game made by NIS or Nippon Ichi, which Nippon stands for Japan, Ichi is one in Japanese, and software is obviously self-explanatory. They, you know, Nippon Ichi, every time they make like a Disgaea game, for example, they're always implying that all their games take place in like an alternate hell, and it's supposed to be like, you know, Japanese humor all over it, and like violent, you know, anime violence, you know, stuff like that. But one of the major things that they stated was that one of the angels stated to, so one of the holy seraphim stated that there is no absolute evil and there is no absolute good. You know, demons and angels could be the exact same thing. There could be demons that could be angels and angels that could be demons, ironically. So what I'm trying to state here is, you know, you could say that the Federation could essentially be good and evil, and, you know, maybe they have their reasons, but at the same time, maybe they are pure evil, and at the same time, they're pure good. Power will justify. So, maybe Sylux is the same thing. Maybe Sylux realizes that, and that's why it's doing what it's doing, but at the same time, though, maybe Sylux doesn't want, you know, to destroy, you know, then maybe that explains why Sylux is doing what it's doing. Again, we need to know who Sylux is before we find out what Sylux is, and before we know, obviously, who it is and what it's capable of doing. Which is why I think they should make another game centering around Sylux. Again, I can understand that the Metroid series doesn't sell that well, according to some people. I mean, it sells well, but it's not compared to like Mario and Zelda. I really, honestly, if I was in charge of Nintendo, what I would do, and yeah, I know Nintendo's always busy, so, you know, I'm not going to tell them that they're not doing the job right, 'cause I mean, again, they made billions of dollars over the years, so obviously they're doing something right. But what I'm trying to say here is, you know, if I was in charge of Nintendo, I would find a way to make another Metroid game, another series that has never been created before. But then again, you know, just like Shigeru Miyamoto even stated, a good game takes a long time, and a bad game is forever bad, or something like that. But, you know, he was right, though. You know, you have to take your time. If you don't, then good games are forever good, and bad games are forever bad. But anyways, if you think about Metroid Other M, though, Other M actually explains some really good things that I don't think any other Metroid game really explained. Like, for example, going back to Metroid Fusion, it explained, you know, who Adam Malkovich was. Malkovich? I'd have to look his name up again. It explained who Madeline Berman was. who was responsible for the bottle ship and all that. And of course, she was in charge of a lot of other things. Or just like she stated in the game, she's like, I am in control of all the operations, or something like that. But my point is, I don't care if people say Metroid Other M wasn't the greatest game. I mean, obviously, it wasn't, but but it didn't suck as bad as people implied. I mean, it obviously, the way I look at it, I think Metroid Other M was more of a story-based game, because it kind of filled in the blanks for some things that really, if people cared about the story, they'd probably want an expansion, and that's the way I look at it. Metroid Other M, it's not, it wasn't a bad Metroid game, it wasn't. It's just, maybe it just wasn't the Metroid game that some people wanted, to a degree. Because again, I understand the gameplay is everything to people, and me too. But at the same time, though, the story, the Metroid series is really something you guys gotta appreciate, because you have to understand, it's all about, like, the universe and everything. Like, it's, there's not too many games out there, like, I can name a few other franchises that deal around, like, space travel, like, for example, like Star Ocean, and I'm trying to think of what that other series was called, where you travel to other planets and everything. Or like, for example, there's not too many games out there that, okay, maybe there is, but there's, like, every other game usually takes place on, like, one planet or one galaxy, one universe. Or if you want to go by the game theorist's perspective, like, all Nintendo games are one galaxy, but, like, on different planets, which, okay, makes sense. Heck, if you even remember Super Smash Bros. Melee, every time, like, for example, every an adventure mode, for example, like when you escape planet Zebes and it blows up, and eventually it zooms in on the Dream Star, like Dreamland, the galaxy, the warp star of the Dreamland, and then you go to Dreamland and Kirby's Land. So it's like they're not too far off from each other, sort of. But what does this all have to do with Sylux, though? The idea is very simple. Sylux, it's, we don't see Sylux throughout the whole Metroid series, but what we can infer is that it's going to be something that Samus has seen before, to a degree. Like if Sylux was an alien race that we've never seen before, that would be different about it. But maybe what the whole Metroid series is based on, Sylux is somehow connected to it. So, like, for example, again, we have to know who Sylux is, and we have to understand what Sylux is and what its motivations are. Maybe there's a reason that it hates Samus and it's chasing after the bounty hunters. Maybe for the power. Maybe for the complete control of the Federation. Here's another theory. And this is something else I want to throw out there, because I'm not really sure if I might remember this in the future, but I have to make a video about this. They say that the Galactic Federation centers around all of the universe, all the galaxy. If you actually go on the internet and look up the Federation, it actually has, like, illustrations in a manga form where they say, like, there's other members from, like, other planets. If you think about Metroid Prime 3, what's really funny is, in the earlier days of Metroid, the Federation was viewed as, like, a civilization where it was more based off, like, other aliens from other planets, and they were involved in the governments. So it's like a galactical government, if that makes sense. So my point is, whatever happened to that idea? Like, if you think about, like, the Metroid series, like Metroid Prime 3, when you would think the Galactic Federation, you would think of it something like, it's just a human government that's somehow that powerful and that, and it kind of makes sense. But, then you can get into something like Halo, for example, where, look at how their government was set up, the whole human race. I mean, there was aliens involved, or even Mass Effect, they're aliens. They were aliens involved in governments. Hell, even Star Trek. I know Star Trek is not a video game series, but, but look at it, though. That's pretty much like that, though. Or hell, even Star Ocean. Star Ocean had, like, galactic federations of some kind, and they even had aliens from other planets. Mostly human-like aliens, but they were all over the place, Star Wars included. Again, I don't care if it's movies, video games, books, as long as they have other life forms from other planets forming, like, some sort of an alliance with life forms on other planets, because in space travel is a normal thing in their universe, then you can form a galactical government of some kind. But the question, though, is, and this is where I want to draw the line, where do you draw the line that the Galactic Federation is? Okay, I understand that, we're not trying to argue about the existence of a god, especially in a video game. But where do you really draw the line at the Galactic? Who's the main leader of the Galactic Federation? Is it God? Or whatever you would want to call God in the Galactic Federation? You know, that's another theory. You know, how big is the Galactic Federation? Because, you know, they never really seem to know that, you never really seem to mention who their leader is. It's always like, they mention it like it's they, like it's just a vague term used. So that would be pretty interesting to think about. But going back to Sylux, though. Sylux's origins. You know, I know I made a video about this earlier, a couple days ago, but this is something else I want to include. You know, first of all, we have to understand, you know, what Sylux is, why it's capable of doing what it does, and somehow being able to pick up Samus and being able to be there just before she leaves, but at the same time, like, she doesn't know she's there. So maybe Sylux has cloaking devices, maybe Sylux is using nothing but pure electricity. I wanted to say Phazon for a second, but Phazon isn't there anymore. Also, I want to state that, you know, if Sylux is chasing Samus, maybe Samus has something that Sylux wants, or maybe Sylux just wants revenge for, you know, beating him in Metroid Prime Hunters, or it. And I don't mean him as in, like, it's a male. I mean, like, you know, it could be anything. Sylux could be completely different. But maybe it's connected somehow to the space pirates, to the Chozo. Maybe it's a cousin of some kind. I got that song. I got Samus Aran's theme stuck in my head from Metroid Super Smash Bros. Brawl. The ending credits to Super Metroid. That song is so awesome. So here's what I think. Samus is going to fight Sylux. And the question is going to be where at, and will Sylux reveal itself? Or will Samus kill Sylux, and then Samus will take off its helmet? Because I guarantee you that Nintendo isn't just going to leave this blank. I mean, even if maybe the story behind Sylux won't be the best, because, you know, again, you know, who's to say it will be. But, you know, but I'm sure there will at least be a moment where Samus, I mean, I'm sure it'll be fun. I'm sure it will be really cool. You know, but I'm just saying that I don't think Sylux is going to be the best villain ever, but, you know. But I'm sure that it'll be enough to entertain people. And what I'm saying is I'm sure that Nintendo isn't going to just leave Sylux there, like, who is Sylux, you know. I'm sure they'll probably reveal who Sylux is of some kind. But again, going back to, like I was saying, back to Metroid Prime 2 that was long in this video. I mean, you know, look at when, you know, Samus was fighting Metroid Prime, Dark Samus. You know, it said that Samus was a female. Obviously, Samus is a female. But as far as Dark Samus goes, it was an alien. Look at its final form. It looked like a skull with brain cells and multiple eyes, and it made those techno noise. Like, I mean, before you fight the final Metroid, or Dark Samus in Metroid Prime 2, look at what Dark Samus is. Somehow, you know, the way Dark Samus talks, it's like these techno transmissions, these like really scary transmissions. It's like this ominous force that she talks with. You know, she's obviously an alien, so she's not. But it's an it though. It doesn't look like a female. It looks like an it, an ET, something that wasn't on this planet, that was just out there, completely oblivious to what we think. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you play Metroid Prime, you would have to think about, like, all the things you ran into. The Phazon, the characters, the who else? You know, I mean everything you could imagine was all there. Like again, Sylux was a hunter that, I mean, from what we understand, we can see it's probably a human-like alien, but it's its own species, so it's not an alien, like because again, think of it like this. I mean, Sylux is the same height as Samus. Well, maybe a little bit bigger. And I don't think Samus is going to be fighting Madeline Berman Because again, you know, wasn't I'm trying to think. Wasn't Madeline a little bit shorter than Samus? Maybe I'm wrong, but I definitely don't think that Sylux is human, so therefore I don't think it's. But at the same time, though, why would well, then again, it could be a possibility, but I don't know. I don't think it's Madeline Bourbon, because again, she would like somehow. So you're gonna tell me that somehow like Madeline herself is like just as skilled as Samus is? That'd be a real interesting plot twist, that Madeline is more of just a scientist in the Galactic Federation versus like Samus versus like, you know, she was raised by aliens. She's got all this ancient technology. Because let me tell you something though, if that is the case, and then again I'm not standing by it, but this is what I will stand by if this is true though. If Sylux is Madeline Bourbon, then they really need to bring that story out a little bit more. Like, I mean, like, not saying it's not a good idea, but I mean, a lot of people would probably be like, wow, that would be a huge plot twist, knowing that, you know, because it does say that Madeline did disappear, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not, again, I didn't read everything in Metroid Other M yet, and I did like the game, yes, but at the same time, though, if I do remember correctly, Madeline was said to be missing. Nobody knows what happened to her. Some people say that, you know, she probably testified and she was arrested for, I guess, the bottle ship incident. Again, I don't know. I don't know how that all went. But all I know is Metroid Fusion had a lot of interesting things about it. So we have to, so again, think of it like this. If we're going to figure out who Sylux is, we have to figure out what connection it has with the rest of the series. What happened, again, and while we're on the topic, what happened to Noxus, Trace, Weevil, Spar, Caden, because obviously they're not dead. They're just somewhere else at the moment. So, but Sylux though, Sylux, they don't even tell you who it is. They don't even tell you that it has it doesn't even tell you what Sylux does, aside from it being a skilled bounty hunter or an alter ego of somebody else's. Because think of it like this. Samus Aran is a bounty hunter that fights. So that's who she is in the suit. But obviously, when she's out of the suit, she's a whole different person. I mean, from when we referred to her, you know, like from her life and, you know, what happened to her. But at the same time, though, you know, if you were to think about, let's say, Sylux. So if Sylux is an alien from another planet, maybe then this would be Sylux's alter ego. It fights for its own survival. It fights for some galactical purpose. You know, for all we know, again, Sylux could be, we need to know who's the guy in the suit, who is Sylux. And then we should learn a little bit more about them, so that way we have this full story, so it comes full circle. Who is Sylux? Why does it want the Galactic Federation dead? What does Sylux know that Samus doesn't? And another thing that I think is really interesting that I don't think a lot of people have taken into consideration, because even I'm still trying to figure this out, if Sylux is after something that Samus doesn't understand, because again, you know, in proof, look at the Metroid timeline, the accurate timeline that, you know, so, you know, Sylux wasn't anywhere else in the Federation. They never even mentioned that even before Metroid Prime Hunters that Samus was being attacked by Sylux, or Sylux was attacking the Federation, and the Federation was doing something about it. They literally stated that moments prior to Metroid Prime Hunters, that's when Sylux was attacking the Federation, but it left and no trace was left behind where it went and who it was. The Federation just kind of looked around and said, okay, you know, we got to keep a close eye on this if this character ever comes back. And sure enough, it did. Or now it is coming back. So where is Samus going? Probably back to the Federation. And Metroid Prime 3, of course, you know, at the end. So maybe the game will open up, like, somehow where you're fighting Sylux. Like, literally, like, at the beginning of the game, you will fight Sylux. Like, that'll be, like, one of the first things you do. Think of it like this. Has anybody ever played Tales of Exolia 2 for the PS3? You remember how as soon as you start a new game, you're just immediately thrown into a battle? Then the game starts talking about all this dialogue about the human race and its history. Like, the story is literally going on as you're fighting. It's like something like that. Like, could you literally imagine, like, if the first, like for example, like think of it like this. You know, usually when you think of a Metroid game, you get the story. But what if they immediately, like, the game threw itself into a battle with some story included, and you were fighting Sylux at the very beginning of the game? Could you imagine how that would go down? I mean, okay, yeah, I know that's probably not going to happen, but I mean, like, could you imagine that, though? It's like, oh, you know, here's a, but I mean in a good way. It's not just blown out of proportion and taken the wrong way. No, it'd be like you land on the Federation or wherever, and boom, here comes Sylux. Ship lands, Sylux gets out, and everybody just starts running for the hills because, you know, they realize that this isn't going to be easy. Because again, think about it. You know, here's something else that I want to mention. This is debatable, but I want to say this is true, though. Sylux is probably going to be the strongest enemy that Samus fights. Stronger than the SAX, stronger than Dark Samus at full power. Because look at all the power it's acquired over the time, you know. Sylux can do everything better than the Federation. And it's just one guy. You know, usually when you see movies, for example, you usually think, okay, you know, it's a one-man army. You know, like, think of The Legend of Zelda, for example. You know, the idea is that, you know, Link is a one-man army. Yeah, he occasionally has allies every now and again to help him out. You know, like Navi, Midna. I'm trying to think of the one woman from Skyward Sword. My point is, if you think of your characters that you play as, you're a one-man army. Yeah, of course the heroes are mostly going to win for the most part, not all the time, and maybe some sacrifices every now and again. But my point is, you know, if you think about it, though, I mean, Samus, for the most part, is a one-man army. She is strong, man. Even Link goes, like, the whole Moblins. Ganondorf always sends somebody. Ganon always sends his Moblin army after him. Can't kill him. Can't kill Link. He always takes down the biggest enemies that are like 50 times bigger than he is. He always finds a way to solve these puzzles, gets out, gets the treasure. Then he finds Ganondorf. Like, it's like a Link to the Past. Like, think of it like a Link to the Past. You know, the whole story in a nutshell was that, you know, Ganon, okay, so like the light world starts. You know, you're in the light world. They seal Ganon away in the sacred realm. So Ganon creates a clone of himself called Aghanim to go to the light world while he's in the sacred realm, which is now the dark world, or at least before he turns the light world into the dark world, or the sacred realm into the dark world. You know, so he's sitting here thinking to himself that, you know, okay, so he's trying to find a way to get back to the light world because it was sealed away. But a lot of people died trying to break the seal. So more battles happen. Meanwhile, Link is, you know, has to go on a quest to save Zelda, save the maidens, get the Master Sword. But, you know, you don't know this again until, like, the end of the game. I mean, obviously, but anyways. You fight Aghanim. You know, you get the Master Sword, you find out Zelda's been kidnapped because they were hiding her at the Sanctuary, but before you go rescue her and drop her off at the Sanctuary, you know, just to make a long story short, then you go get 3 medallions, go get the Master Sword, and you go to the Lost Woods, and there's, like, all those fake Master Swords, and they say, oh, this is the Master Sword. It's like, no, this isn't the Master Sword, too bad. You throw it and it disappears. But, you know, it's funny, though, because, you know, but it's like Link was a one-man army. And then finally, you know, Ganondorf was fighting, or Link was fighting Ganon, the clone of Ganon. You know, and then he finds out that, you know, Ganon, you know, Aghanim, he's talking to him through his clone, his alter ego. So Ganon fights Link for the first time, and then he sends him to the Dark World. He's like, very well, hero. He's like, I'll draw you into the Dark World. And then, he takes him to the Dark World, and then that old man that Link met, that he helped out, gave him that mirror, which could warp him back to the Light World, so there was a way out of the Dark World, and the Moon Pearl to prevent him from transforming. But it's really interesting, though, because the whole game, all the way up until Link to the Past, was you were saving all the maidens, pretty much stopping Ganondorf from everything he did, or Ganon in this case. And then it's like, even though Ganon's just a fictional character, and so is Link and every other character we're talking about here, but it's like, you get all the way up to Ganon. You fight, you get to Ganon's tower after you free all the maidens, and they help you get into Ganon's tower. Obviously, it's Ganon, because, it's... Ganon's tower, something's not right here. Something's going to be involving Ganon's return. But it's like, Ganon is like, you get up to him, you fight Aghanim for the second time, but now he creates 2 clones of himself, so now you have 3 of them you gotta deal with. But you can technically kill him faster if you know how to deal with it. Not to mention if you have the magic rod, you can actually, or the magic cape and the King Natharin or something like that, you can pretty much just reflect their spells back at them, like just hit them, but they can't hit you. But it's also weird because, the reason I bring this up is because when you go fight Ganon, after it's revealed who Ganon is, like, you see him transform on Aghanim, you go and fight Ganon, but first you go to Aghanim's tower, or Ganon's tower, but it's like, just before the Triforce, Ganon goes, he decides to wait for you. And then, as you fall down the hole, because you're chasing after him, he's 1 room away from the Triforce, even though he's already touched it, but, I guess he decides to wait a little bit longer, even though he couldn't completely wish his wish, because I guess the Triforce told Link after he killed Ganon that, he couldn't have his full wish because he didn't complete it somehow. He didn't, he decided to come back for it later, even though he already had complete access to it, to a degree. Something like that. But, anyways, one of the famous quotes that Ganon tells you, and the reason I told you all that background information about Link to the Past was because, I want you to think about this for a second. Just before you fight Ganon, you fall in a hole, and he's not standing in the exact middle of the room, but he's standing pretty close to it, though. And he looks at you, and he's like, I could never imagine a boy like you could give me so much trouble. It's like, it's hard to imagine that, you defeated my alter ego, Aghanim the Dark Wizard, not once, but twice. He's like, and he says something about, but I'll never give you the Triforce of Power, or the Triforce of Essence. He's like, I will defeat you, and make my wish come true without delay. Like literally just stating to you that, he doesn't want to surrender. The reason I bring that up is because it's kind of like you were making Ganon shaking his boots a little bit. He sent his whole army after you, and he couldn't stop this one guy from stopping him. Link is just like a god or something. He goes on a mission to save the world from an evil demon, essentially. Ganondorf is a pig, a giant moblin, a giant boar. But my point is, even though he's a fictional character, but you gotta understand, though, that's how Ganon was thinking. He's this ruthless, killing, hatred king, greedy-ass king. He wants everything. But when he realizes that, he's just not going to give up what he wants really easily. It's like, he fights Link then, and, it's even Ganon was amazed that, he had all these people go after him. He couldn't kill Link. Link killed every single one of them, and then Ganon even said, okay, fine, I'll deal with you myself. It literally comes down to that. And then, even Ganon couldn't even stop Link. You know what I mean? It's crazy how that worked. But it's like the same thing with Sylux. The Federation can't stop him. Can't stop it. So it's like, who the hell is the Federation? Why is Samus, more powerful than the Federation? Not to mention, where is Sylux? What is it doing right now? In the game's story, at least. What do we not know about Sylux yet? That would be very compelling. What I'm saying is, the reason I'm making all these off-topic, ideas is because, it meets the same thing that I'm trying to make a good point with Sylux. You think of Sylux as this character that it's mysterious, it's a bounty hunter, and it's no one really knows its full origins. But, what I'm trying to say is, if you look at the games for what they are, you come to this realization that Sylux is more powerful than probably anything else Samus is going to even fight. But at the same time, though, it's like, nobody can beat him except Samus. Like, only a select few people could beat Sylux, it seems like. Because Sylux is... take the Federation, for example. There's many recruits. They all have good weapons, so it's not like they all suck. But it's like, Sylux is a skilled marksman, can track Samus, can track anybody if it wanted to. It can terminate anything at will. From what we understand, Sylux was seeking power from other, it figured out how to make sense of the lockjaw and all that. So it took Samus's abilities. Doesn't mean it knows how to use them as well as Samus would have. See, that's another good point to make. Just because Sylux might have the upper hand with the weapons and everything does not mean that it knows how to, it has the upper hand in defeating Samus. Because let me tell you something, Samus could kick Sylux's ass, and I guarantee you that seeing how, this is how I look at it, and I think I'm going to spoil it anyways. I think that Samus will kill Sylux, though. Because think of the game. Think of where Metroid Prime Hunters goes in the timeline. If I'm right about Metroid Prime 3's ending having Sylux, because obviously it's been confirmed by the game designers now, if it's true that that game is going to take place immediately after Metroid Prime 3, if we've played Metroid Fusion, we know that Samus was still alive. So Metroid Fusion being like the last game in the Metroid series as of right now, if Sylux is still the like Samus is going to be fighting Sylux, then we can assume for sure that Metroid Prime 4, we'll just call it Metroid Prime 4, or whatever the title will be called, will be better, will be before Metroid Fusion. So the whole trilogy that is going to be, I guarantee we're probably going to at least get a few games. I guarantee that's what Nintendo's probably doing. Much like Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3. It was a trilogy that they probably had already written down, but immediately after the games were already worked on. So, like, for example, Metroid Prime 1, it took them a while to make. But then when Metroid 2 came out, it immediately happened. So, Metroid Prime 1, and then a few years later, and then another few years later, Metroid Prime 2, and then 3. And then there was a couple side games included. The games were already well thought out. They submitted the ideas, and it's like, here you go. This is what we want to do. And they did. So I want to think, and okay, so I got 11 minutes to record here, but anyways, well, 12 really. But Sylux is going to be another interesting character that the game pretty much focuses on. Or maybe Sylux is bringing proof that the other hunters are coming back. So Cadence Bar, Weevil Noxus. Because again, if Sylux is alive, then why would the other ones be dead? You know what I mean? Some people like to think that the other hunters were dead, but they're not dead in Metroid Prime Hunters. The other hunters survived, just like Sylux did. And Samus did too. The other hunters left before Samus survived. So it makes sense that if Samus survived, that, she would, well, if you think about it, even in Metroid Prime Hunters, when the Oblivion ship blew up, or whatever the heck it was called, where you fight Gorga, or whatever the heck that boss was called, and get the Omega Cannon. The civilization, the space pirates left, or the pirates left, I should say. The other bounty hunters left and their ships. And Samus was teleported to, like, some sort of alternate dimension where the main Metroid theme song would play. And she was, like, looking at the other hunters. This is if you kill the second form of Gorga, or whatever the heck it's called. My point is, if you think of Metroid Prime Hunters, like the ending, like the actual real ending to the game, the characters were like Samus was, like, I guess interacting would be the word, with the other characters, like the race that the ancient power that the game referred to it as. Like, if you play Metroid Prime Hunters, the single player, there was an alien race that looked like Gorga, sort of, but they were more of like a civilization,
So, like, again, Metroid Prime Hunters, like, you know, there was Samus was here, like on the left side, and then there was 2 of the citizens. I think they were dead or something, like, or something like that, you know. So that's kind of what happened. You know, Samus survived, went back to the Federation, reported that they probably served, you know, their civilization was probably wiped out, or maybe she was talking to other aliens that were still in that territory. So it would have been like Metroid Prime 2, for example. You know, you think that all of the you would think that all of the characters in Metroid Prime 2, is that even the right word? Well, that's like saying that if you were to play Metroid Prime 2 and the aliens that, I'm trying to think what their names were on Aether or whatever, light Aether, not dark Aether, not the Federation, not the Space Pirates, but the characters that looked like giant praying mantises, and they were the ones that would tell Samus about like who she is and all that, and they say, "Fear not, I am not your enemy." You know, they would tell Samus all about, like, you know, they were kind of like the Chozo, like cousins of the Chozo, like, or at least I think they were, anyways. My point is, if you think about those aliens, you would think that they were all extinct, and all but one of them was. But if you play the end of Metroid Prime 2, later on, when Samus returns and gives the light suit back, they all bow down to her for saving their planet. And then she just, as she's walking out the door, she doesn't look back, but she waves goodbye, like, you know, mission accomplished. I mean, if you've ever played Metroid Prime 2, you know what I mean. But, you know, you would think that they were all extinct. No, there were some of them that still survived. You know, so in Metroid Prime 2, all those aliens were still there, but we just didn't see them until the end of the game. So it would be like, you know, maybe they're still alive in Metroid Prime Hunters, that race that still existed. So that's where Samus was, but then Samus went to the Federation. But anyways, but my point is, you know, why this is connected to Sylux. Maybe Sylux, you know, the same thing could be said about Sylux origin, and this is my major theory I want to go with. Because this is where I'm going to start wrapping things up, but I'll explain it. Okay, given all the information that I've linked you, like, I mean, even the ones that's probably off information, think of it like this. Sylux is an alien from another planet. It's possible, and I mean, and again, it could be anything, but I'm willing to bet that Sylux is an alien that its race, it's not the last, like the very, very last of its kind, but one of the last. And it uses, you know, maybe the Federation wiped out Sylux's race, sort of. Or maybe it just crossed blades with Sylux, that maybe the Federation has something that could save Sylux's race, or maybe, because again, we don't know what its species is, but at the same time, it seems like every single, or how do we know, or maybe Sylux is a Chozo, who knows? As a matter of fact, maybe the Federation might have wiped out the Chozo race, I mean, aside from the Space Pirates, too. Because again, why are the Space Pirates working with the Federation? What's the connection there? Maybe there's good Space Pirates. But then again, you know, look what happened to Rondux before it was corrupted by Dark Samus. Rondux even stated that, you know, when you were, before you get the first energy tank, he's like, oh, Samus. He's like, I just happened to repel the Space Pirate forces. He's like, oh, here we go again. You know, Rondux even stated that, Rondux. Yeah, wait, is it Rondux? Rondux even stated that, or Rodux, or how you pronounce his name? It's been a while. I could have swore there was a Y in his name, not just UNDAS or something like that. DUS. Yeah, DUS. It's like, if we remember Metroid Prime 3, Rondux actually, you know, explained that the Space Pirates wouldn't give up, despite the fact that you fight Rondux, because of what its powers were. You know, ice, and I mean, it saves you from the Space Pirates, but then eventually it started fighting you because it was under Dark Samus's control, and you had no choice but to put him out of his misery for the most part. So my point is, you know, maybe the same thing could be said about Dark Samus. Like, I mean, Dark Samus is dead, but I mean, like, maybe we can think of like the whole idea of possessing people and the Federation can't go unarmed. Maybe there's stuff that the Federation did to Sylux' race, that Sylux hates the Federation so much. Because again, if you look at it, on a psychological level, think of it like this. Sylux doesn't just hate the Federation. It's like as if the Sylux, as if there's a reason. Like Sylux, the Federation did something to Sylux, or it affected Sylux in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's the bureaucracy. Maybe they wiped out his race, and now he's coming back with a vengeance because maybe they messed with the wrong race. You know what I mean? You never know. It'd be like an alien invasion. It's like the video game Kill All Humans or Destroy All Humans. Yeah, Destroy All Humans. It's like, the problem was that, the aliens that crash landed on this planet in Area 51, and then, once they sent an SOS to the actual, you came back to the planet and you played as an alien of that same race, and you had to rescue your friend because the humans took in the Federation. So maybe it's like something like with Sylux, but instead of like them sending an SOS, maybe Sylux's race was sort of endangered, and the Federation was involved in it with the space pirates somehow, and maybe Sylux became a bounty hunter of its own goodwill and its own militia, and now it's fighting everything in its power, and Sylux shows its true power because, from what we understand, it can kill everybody that comes in its way, like I said, with Link and Zelda and all that, and it's like, they just can't stop him. The only way to kill Sylux is with an even more powerful bounty hunter, and Samus seems to be the only one at the moment that, from the Federation side, that Sylux is it's like gonna be a one-on-one death match with Sylux versus Samus. So, no one knows who Sylux is. But what I'm trying to say is, but if we're trying to understand who Sylux is, I think the next thing we could at least figure out with all the information given is why Sylux hates the Federation. And we have to think about it though. Sylux comes from Cylosis, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just where Sylux was fighting the Federation. Why was the Federation on Cylosis in the first place? Again, watch the opening to Metroid Prime Hunters when they're introducing. Sylux is the first one they introduced. So, what was Sylux doing? What were they doing on Cylosis? The Federation. Because in the beginning of the game, it shows 3 Galactic Federation grunts. But Sylux gunned down one of them, just crash landed over, and he let out a roar after he came out of, he went that whoosh, whoosh with his arms. Like that, he got a shotgun feature and all that. But the question is though, who is Sylux though? What does Sylux, why would Sylux kill the Federation? That's the only information you need to know. What is the Federation doing against Sylux, and why does it hate the Federation? The Federation is evil, but at the same time it's good, and maybe Sylux is good too, but at the same time it's pretty badass. See, that's going to be the thing though. I want you to think about this for a second. Sylux is obviously something that's shrouded in mystery. Nobody knows who Sylux is. It's all a theory. But to think about who Sylux is, you need to think about what I've said though. The information that we're given. Because with that information, it'll be clear as day who Sylux is. So when you find Sylux in the next Metroid game, I'm not just talking about Metroid Federation forces, but I'm talking about the next Metroid game that actually comes out that has Sylux in it. When you run into Sylux, you need to think about this for a second. You're gonna be fighting Sylux at some point. Samus is going to be fighting Sylux. But before that, you're probably gonna get a cutscene where they zoom in on Sylux. It's gonna stand there for like 5 seconds, and then the battle will start. Kind of like in Metroid Prime 2, where you fought Dark Samus for the first time. Dark Samus was absorbing the Phazon. Samus just kind of walked up to her, and then Dark Samus just turned around and looked at her. You know what I mean? It's like the nostalgic. We fought we fought Sylux in the past one time, but now we're going to be fighting it again. So the question will be, especially to the gamers, who the hell is Sylux? And with that, I leave you with this question. What else do we need to know? What do we know with the information given? I think Sylux is an alien from another planet that hates the Federation because it's trying to get revenge somehow. So comment, rate, subscribe, favorite, share this video in any way that you can. Put this channel on your channel and recommend this channel to everybody know. Follow me on Facebook, and if you have any questions about Sylux, let me know.